Okay, the outfit is not very award season, but at least appreciate the makeup. You know, it's sparkly, it's gold, award season. Yeah, just go with it. We have reached the other end of the typical award season that you see around the world. But we have started to see plans made for next year. So this felt like the most important time to make a video and to start building a discussion around this topic. In the next couple of months, we are seeing two shows featuring non-binary actors in the lead roles. At the Garrick, we have Rob Madge's one-person show opening up, and then a couple weeks later, we have Orlando starring Emma Corrin, two non-binary actors who are equally as eligible for Best Actor nominations. However, despite this, we are still stuck with acting categories that are split by binary gender. Sooner or later, these award shows are going to have to address this fact. However, the solution isn't as easy as just adding another category for non-binary people. Today, I'm going to walk through the problem. I'm going to pitch several different solutions, and using a very specific criteria, I'm going to judge these on how effective they would be. But if you haven't seen my face before, hi, I'm Ellie. I talk about theatre. I am a trans theatre content creator here on YouTube. I make reviews, I do discussions, and if any of this sounds interesting to you, please consider hitting like and subscribing to the channel. It really helps me out and helps out what I'm doing over here. But with all that said, let's get started with this discussion. Despite a lot of people trying to ignore the problem, the theatre industry is going to have to discuss this and find a solution at some point, whether it's now or whether they push it later and later. We need to address the lack of inclusion within these categories. And so, with these solutions, I'm going to judge each of them by two criteria. Number one, you want to make sure that trans people not just feel included, but also validated in which category they are nominated in. We don't just want to shove trans people in as an afterthought. This is not just important for your trans actors, but also for the trans audiences. The people who are going to be watching this, the people who are starting to get into the industry in different places, whether it's acting, whether it's backstage. This decision and these changes will speak volumes on how inclusive the Society of London Theatre is when it comes to non-binary people. It's a big change that means a lot to a lot of people, including me. But equally important is number two. Whatever decision is made, whatever solution we find, we have to be careful to make sure that we don't lose the diversity that did come from having this be a split category. Obviously, we had a lot of people win awards. We always see 4 different actors win within an acting category at the Oliviers. If we go by these two criteria, we can try and find the best solution. So let's start with analysing what is probably the easiest solution right now. Just do nothing. In this hypothetical, everything stays the same. We just keep going how it's always been. We would either see non-binary performers completely snubbed from these categories or shoved into a section they may not belong in and don't match their gender expression, which would very likely cause an uproar in the community and cause a lot of bad press for this award ceremony. Obviously, as a trans person, this to me is the worst solution. You're not fixing anything, and you're not fixing anything for anyone. This would essentially be equal to just sweeping it under the rug or pushing it on for whoever comes next year. Sadly though, I think this is what we are going to see until there is a non-binary performance that they can't not nominate. Whether that's this year, I don't know. The next solution is actually one that has a little bit of a precedent, and this comes directly from the What's on Stage Awards. They had slightly changed the names of their acting categories, changing it from Best Actor and Best Actress to Best Actor in a Male Identifying Role and Best Actor in a Female Identifying Role. Now, this is a nice solution on paper. It's a nice gesture, it works for the most part. However, the entire thing falls apart as soon as you ask the question, What happens when you get a non-binary role? Sure, for the most part, you're going to be able to fit your actors into these two categories, but Rob Madge in their one-person show doesn't fit into either of these. They're playing themselves, and they are non-binary. They are not playing a male-identifying role, nor are they playing a female-identifying role. It's a nice thought. However, it still works a little bit too much on the idea of binary gender. So, what about combining the category? If you just combined it and had the same amount of nominations and the same amount of winners, we do lose a lot of the diversity and the wide range of winners that we see every year. So, instead of that, why not combine the categories and have 2 winners? This way, you have the same amount of winners, you have the same amount of nominees, you could even fit more nominees into this one category. The problem here arises from the fact that there's no guarantee that your entire category is not just going to be filled with one gender. It's more neutral in its fact, which would definitely include non-binary people, but it is a possibility that you would lose that diversity. So why don't we take it one step further and take some inspiration from the Emmy Awards? Why don't we split the categories instead by genre? Because as I sat down and I thought about this more and more, the question that kept coming to me was, why do we split this category on gender? And now Ellie takes you down the rabbit hole of this question. No other award is split by gender. Why is this? The job of an actor and an actress are not two completely different things. They're the same job, just as a female director and a male director are doing the exact same job. But why don't we see directing split? Why don't we see lighting split? Why don't we see any of these other professions split in a category? And whenever we talk about changing this, and whenever we talk about making this category genderless, there is such a loud voice talking about this diversity. And it's an important voice. Diversity is important. Heck, this entire video is talking about diversity for trans people. But the way acting is split in award shows doesn't make sense. The best thing that comes from having this category split is the fact that there is always a guarantee that we're going to see some diversity in the winners. However, this is only diversity between men and women. Diversity for one group. If you're going to split it on binary gender, why aren't you also splitting the category on race? I mean, we're seeing a clear lack of people of colour winning awards. Think of movements like Oscars So White. So if we're splitting it on gender, why don't you also split it on race? Okay, and then go a bit further that. Okay, now trans people aren't really being included, so split it again on with trans people, and then split that between race. Oh, and what about neurodivergencies? We're going to split that and that, and then you've got a million different categories. Why is it only split between gender and not any of these other minorities in society? As soon as we realise the double standard that we've set here, the entire idea of having gendered categories kind of falls apart. So why can't we split these categories by genre instead? It makes more logical sense. You're grouping similar types of performances together. Say we split it 2 ways and we had Best Actor in a comedic role in a musical, Best Actor in a dramatic role in a musical, Best Actor in a comedic role in a play, Best Actor in a dramatic role in a play. The jobs of an actor and an actress are not that different and we need gender categories. But the reason they are is because there's enough to split those categories. Why isn't directing, lighting, sound, book, writing, why aren't any of these categories separated by gender? Because you would very clearly see a lack of a female voice, a lack of a voice from people of colour, a lack of a trans voice. What's the reason you can't split a separate category for non-binary people? Because you would see the lack of the voice in the nominees. At the end of the day, award shows are avoiding this issue because it's a fundamental problem, and there's no real easy solution. By nature, these award shows are not that inclusive. Movements like Oscars So White have shown us this. A lot of this does come from the fundamentals. Who's making these decisions on who's the best actor? Who's watching these shows? Who is picking the shortlist? And how many of these voices are we propelling to these stages so that we can have a clear, diverse slate of nominees? This is why additional award shows like the Black British Theatre Awards are so important until we face these inequalities that we see within our society. I want to hope that removing gender from these categories wouldn't negatively affect the diversity, but that would be quite naive. The true solution would be to change the category and at the same time pledge that you're going to do better. Balance the people who are voting for this and boost up these underrepresented voices within our communities. A pledge that you are not going to raise just the voices of women, but also trans people, people of colour, neurodiverse people, and hold yourself accountable if that slips. Splitting the category by gender is not the solution and has never been the solution. Or it would be in place for every single award. I think the real solution is complicated. And if I'm honest, I think we're going to see acting categories split by binary gender for as long as these award shows can possibly hold on to them. People don't like change. However, I think one day in these award shows we are going to see some true inclusion for non-binary people, and not just them, but also for the minorities within the theatre community. But what are your thoughts? This is a very complicated situation, and I'd love to hear any of your solutions, any of your ideas, and any of your responses. If you did enjoy this video, please consider hitting like and subscribing. It really helps me out and helps out the channel. But that's it for me today, and I'll hopefully see you next time. Bye!